My name is Mary Delahousie Bello, and I'm from Baton Rouge, and I'd like to share with you my husband, Captain Arthur J. Delahousie's military experience. He was from Lafayette, Louisiana. He entered the military after college graduation in 1965. He went first to Pensacola, Florida, to train and to hopefully become a pilot, the beginning of becoming a pilot. And then he was transferred to Meridian, Mississippi in 1965, and that is the year that we got married. We were in Meridian, Mississippi until the early part of 1966. One of his trainers was Senator John McCain, and the Naval Air Station in Mississippi at the time was named the McCain Naval Air Station. He went on to Pensacola to train and also to pass the carrier qualifications, flying the jet onto the carrier, which he found very challenging. And from there, we went on to Kingsville, Texas, the Naval Air Station. All of this while the Navy was training the Navy pilots as well as the Marine pilots, which my husband was a Marine. He got his gold wings in Kingsville, Texas, and from there we went to Cherry Point, North Carolina. From Cherry Point, North Carolina, which is where he trained in the F-4B Phantom jet, he was sent to Vietnam, where he was in Squadron 323, which was located in Chu Lai, Vietnam. One thing I do remember in one of his letters, I told him that I had had a visit with Congressman Edwin Willis, and he had told me that I should mention to my husband that let him know if there was anything that he could do for him and for them. And my husband, Arthur, wrote back and said, "Yes, let us win this war." Just before he left to go to Vietnam, we came back to Louisiana and spent a month with his parents. And then later, my son, who was 1 year old, and I moved to Cecilia to be with my parents, because at the time I was pregnant, and we thought that it would be best if I could be at home with my mom and dad, so that's what we did. He left for Vietnam on October the 15th, and naturally when he first arrived, he was in training. Then later he began his official flights, and he flew 89 missions, a total of 91.4 hours. He was killed during the Tet Offensive on January 31st, 1968. And the way I found out about it was the doorbell rang at my parents' home, and we opened the door, and there were two Marines who were at the door, and of course asked if they could come in. They had something that they wanted to talk to me about. I knew that it was not good, but I didn't think that it was as bad as it was. The first question I asked was he flying? Because he loved to fly so much. I would have hated for that to have been what caused his death. He was not flying. He was in a bunker, and there were 7 men in the bunker, and 4 were killed from the rocket that was launched up in the hill country and scored a direct hit over his head. And he was killed instantly, along with one other person who was the flight surgeon, and there were 2 others who were, one was killed and the other one was brought to the hospital, but later died. And there were 3 that just got minor injuries. From the very beginning when I heard about it, I just accepted it as it was his time to go. And I attribute that and the other experiences that I had to my faith in accepting God's will. We had only one friend that was still in Cherry Point, North Carolina. He was the one who was asked to escort the body from San Diego to Cecilia, where I was. All of this takes time. His body did not arrive until February the 18th, although he was killed on January 31st. And Bob Potter, who was the friend who was still at Cherry Point, North Carolina, got a team of pilots together, I'm sure with the permission, and they flew over our home in Cecilia, and they flew over Art's parents' home in Lafayette, and then back to Cecilia, and then back to Alexandria, and then on to Cherry Point, North Carolina. Because at the time, because of the expenses of that kind of funeral where you have the flyby, they were not doing that. And so that was his way, and that, I guess, the Marines' way of showing appreciation for a fallen soldier. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, which is quite an honor for a pilot. The advice that I would give: do it, enjoy it, and love it. Even with what happened to me, I would do it again, because it's a wonderful experience.